Right, let's dive in. Today, we're taking a trip across the Indian subcontinent, that is, and we're going to be tracing, mapping out these things called Shakti Peethas.
Ah,
These places, they're like super sacred to this Hindu tradition, Shaktism.
Shaktism, right.
Yeah, and well, the belief is that these are the spots where parts of this goddess Sati's body like fell
Mm-hmm.
after, some kind of cosmic tragedy.
Big tragedy.
So it's like we're talking to this divine puzzle.
That's a great way to put it. It's a puzzle and it's scattered across the land.
Hmm.
And, the sources, they don't all agree
Oh, right.
on how many pieces there are in this puzzle. Some say there's 51, others 108. Some even say there's only 18. But no matter the exact number, these sites, they offer us a peek into how Shaktism, this tradition that reveres the feminine divine as this dynamic force, Shakti,
Yeah.
they give us a glimpse into how it evolved and spread.
So I guess we're not just talking about temples here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a concept, this sacred geography.
Yeah.
That's woven into the very fabric of the land itself, right?
Absolutely. Shakti Peethas, they're as diverse
Oh, wow.
as the landscape. You'll find huge temples in bustling cities and then hidden shrines tucked away in these remote mountain ranges, and even just natural features like a bend in a river,
Wow.
a specific rock formation, and they're imbued with the goddess's power. It's almost as if the earth itself is marked with her presence.
Incredible. It's like the whole subcontinent becomes this living, breathing embodiment of the goddess.
Yes.
So okay, how about we back up for a second?
Sure.
So how are these Shakti Peethas actually spread out? I mean, what can their location, the geography, tell us about how Shaktism evolved?
Well, the fact that they are spread out over such a vast area, I mean, we're talking India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Tibet, even Pakistan, that tells us Shaktism wasn't some static tradition. It changed and adapted as it came across different cultures and landscapes, even absorbing local beliefs and practices as it went.
So it wasn't just geographically expanding, it was also kind of integrating culturally. Like the goddess's power was layered onto this already existing tapestry of beliefs and practices.
Exactly. And that's where the connection between the geography and the symbolism gets really interesting. You see, each Shakti Peetha is associated with a specific body part of Sati. And often where it's located kind of reflects the symbolic meaning of that part.
Okay, now that's where things get really interesting.
Yes.
So you mentioned specific body parts. Can you give us an example of how this connection between geography and symbolism actually plays out?
Sure. Let's take the Kamakya temple. It's in Assam.
Okay.
And it's believed to be where Sati's yoni or vulva fell. Now, the yoni in Shaktism, it represents creation, fertility, the source of life, and the temple's location in Assam. Assam is known for its lush and fertile landscape.
Oh, okay.
It's like an echo of the symbolism.
Wow, that is really powerful imagery. So it's not just some random scattering of sites, where there's this deeper meaning built into where they are and the body parts linked to them. What about other examples? I'm trying to picture this divine map across the subcontinent.
Yes.
Each site is like a piece of the puzzle, right?
Exactly. And each piece reveals something about the goddess and her power. Take the Dakshina Kalika temple, for instance. It's in Kolkata. This is where the goddess's right toe is said to have fallen.
Okay.
Now, the toe, especially the right toe, often symbolizes movement, progress, this forward momentum. And Kolkata, this bustling metropolis, it embodies this energy of progress and dynamism.
It's like a giant symbolic dot to dot, but instead of numbers, you've got body parts and secret sites.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, did the people who created these sites, did they intentionally choose spots that resonated with the symbolism of the body parts?
That's a question that scholars are still kind of trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Some think it was totally deliberate, aligning the sacred geography with the symbolism. But others think that, maybe over time, the stories and myths around the sites, they just kind of evolved to fit the existing landscape and culture.
That makes sense. I mean, there are probably like multiple interpretations, especially with such a long and complex history, like with Shaktism. But whenever we talk about these sacred sites and these powerful symbols, I always start to wonder about the human element. What was it like for the people who worshipped at these places? Why would they go on these pilgrimages, sometimes to like incredibly remote and challenging locations?
Can you imagine setting out on foot, traveling huge distances, crossing mountains, rivers, all to get to this place that's imbued with the goddess's power?
Right.
It was a test of faith.
Yeah.
A physical and spiritual journey that meant so much.
It sounds like more than just a religious obligation.
Right.
There must have been this deep personal, almost like a gut feeling to connect with the goddess at these specific spots.
For sure. For a devotee of Shaktism, going to a Shakti Peetha, it was more than just checking something off a list. It was about feeling the goddess's power, like in its rawest form, seeking her blessings, and maybe even understanding themselves better and their place in the cosmos.
Like a direct line to the divine, bypassing all the middlemen, experiencing the sacred on a personal level.
Yes.
But let's be real, where there's sacred power, there's usually political power trying to, like, get a piece of the action, right?
Yeah.
So how did rulers throughout history interact with these sites? Were they really devout, or was it more about being strategic?
Well, like most things in history, it was probably a mix.
Right.
But we can definitely see how rulers, especially during the Vijayanagara Empire, they recognized the symbolic and political power of Shakti Peethas.
Oh, yeah, the Vijayanagara Empire. Those guys, they were known for their pretty impressive temple building, right?
Yeah.
Did they, like, strategically position themselves near Shakti Peethas to kind of boost their authority?
They were smart rulers, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And they knew the power of connecting themselves with the divine feminine. They knew. And we see that in, how they built these huge temples. And a lot of them were placed really strategically near Shakti Peethas. It's almost like they were building their whole empire.
Wow.
On this foundation of sacred power.
So they weren't just like, supporters of the arts and architecture. They were actually pretty savvy political strategists, right?
Right.
They were using the power of these sites to make their rule stronger.
That's exactly it. By connecting themselves with these really powerful places, they were basically saying, they had a divine right to rule.
Right.
As if the goddess herself was like giving them the thumbs up.
Wow.
It was a powerful message to send their people and anyone who might want to challenge them.
And did they just stop at building temples near these Shakti Peethas?
No.
Or did they take it a step further? Did they ever put their own images or symbols inside these sacred spaces?
That's a great question, and the answer is yes, they did.
Oh.
They were masters at using visual. The Vijayanagara kings, they often put their own images and symbols right into the temples, the ones they built or supported near these Shakti Peethas.
Right.
They were creating this strong visual link between the power of the earth and the power of the divine.
Right.
Imagine walking into a temple and seeing the king's image right there with depictions of the goddess. It would have been this really powerful reminder of who was in charge, both in the worldly sense and the spiritual sense.
It's such a fascinating mix, this devotion and political strategy.
It is.
Makes you think, did they really believe in the power of these sites?
Right.
Or was it all just this clever way to use religious symbols for their own gain?
It's impossible to say for sure what they were thinking.
Yeah.
But maybe it was both. Maybe they truly believed that by aligning themselves with the goddess, they were tapping into some divine power that would make their rules stronger. Or maybe they were just more practical, They realized the symbolism, the religious importance of these sites could be a tool
to
help them.
And that's something that historians are still debating today, huh?
They are.
But, no matter what their real motives were, the Vijayanagara rulers, they definitely left their mark on Shaktism. But while we're talking about these grand temples and all the political stuff, it makes me think about the Shakti Peethas that aren't marked by, these huge structures, the ones you mentioned earlier, the ones connected to rivers, mountains, rock formations. Did they pay any attention to those sites, or were they more focused on the big temples?
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And it highlights something really important about Shaktism. Remember, this tradition, it sees the divine feminine as this force that's like everywhere, in
Sure.
everything. It's not just stuck in temples or, the things people made. So while yes, rulers, they put a lot of resources into those big temple projects, people were still worshiping at natural Shakti Peethas. It
Right.
was happening at the same time.
So it was almost like there were like two systems running at the same time.
Yeah.
Like you had these grand temples that were getting like royal support, becoming these centers for pilgrimage, and then you had these natural sites that stayed kind of embedded in local traditions and like the stories people told.
Exactly. It shows how diverse and flexible Shaktism was. The goddess's power, you could feel it in this magnificent temple complex, or you could feel it in the quietness of a sacred grove.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way of seeing the world where the sacred is part of the natural world,
Yeah.
where you can find the divine in the most unexpected places.
That's a beautiful concept. And
Yeah.
it makes me wonder if some Shakti Peethas are connected to these natural features, often like unmarked and not even like written down anywhere.
Right.
Could there be like hidden Shakti Peethas, lost ones, places where you can feel the goddess's presence, but they've never been like officially recognized or acknowledged?
Right. That's a really exciting thought, isn't it? And it wouldn't be surprising because, often it's the oral traditions, the local knowledge that holds the key to understanding these more subtle expressions of the sacred. Think about it. What if a particular rock formation or a bend in a river, what if that was venerated as a Shakti Peetha for generations?
Mm-hmm.
But that knowledge was never written down in any official texts or documented by anyone from outside the community.
Right.
It's totally possible that over time that site could become hidden, forgotten, or even just dismissed as like superstition.
It's like a hidden treasure, just waiting to be discovered. And it shows how important it is to listen to the voices that are often like pushed aside or ignored. Local communities, indigenous knowledge holders, the people who live so closely connected to the land, they might be the ones who hold the keys to unlocking these hidden chapters in the story of Shaktism.
You're absolutely right. And it reminds us that studying religion and sacred geography, it's always a process of discovery. There's always more to learn, more layers to uncover, more perspectives to consider.
Speaking of uncovering layers, remember we were talking about the different numbers of Shakti Peethas.
Yes.
Some say 51, some 108, some even fewer.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea why this number kind of jumps around? Is it just a case of sites being lost and forgotten, or is there something more to it?
It's probably a mix of things.
Okay.
As we've talked about, the very nature of Shakti Peethas, I mean, they can be these massive temples or these subtle natural features that makes it really tough to say exactly how many there are. Some sites might be lost to history, forgotten, or maybe absorbed into other religious traditions.
So some Shakti Peethas could have just been like reinterpreted or repurposed over time, their original meaning kind of fading as new layers of meaning were added on top.
Exactly. And then there's the symbolic and numerological significance of certain numbers in Hinduism, like the number 108. That number holds a special place in a lot of traditions. It represents wholeness, completion, the cosmic order.
So the number of Shakti Peethas, it might have been intentionally expanded to fit with this sacred numerology, even if it meant including sites that weren't originally thought of as Shakti Peethas.
That's definitely possible. And it shows us how fluid and adaptable religious traditions are. They're not like these static things frozen in time. They change, they take in new influences, they reinterpret their own symbols and stories.
It's a reminder that we're dealing with living traditions,
Yeah.
constantly changing, reinterpreting themselves as the world around them changes. But, with all this talk about geography and symbolism and historical analysis, I can't help but wonder about the personal side of Shaktism. What was it like for the people who actually went on pilgrimages to these Shakti Peethas? What were their motives, their experiences?
Imagine setting out on this journey, often on foot, across vast distances,
Wow.
crossing treacherous mountain passes and thick forests. It would have been a real test of your physical and spiritual endurance, this profound act of devotion.
It sounds like a journey that would need this deep commitment to the goddess.
Yeah.
And a willingness to go through hardship to receive her blessings. But what was waiting for them at the end of this difficult journey? What kind of rituals and practices did they perform at these sacred sites?
Well, the specific rituals, they would have been different depending on the Shakti Peetha and the myths connected to it, but there are some common threads, like offerings of flowers, fruits, incense. Right. Those were probably very common. And the chanting of mantras and hymns to the goddess.
So it was a multi-sensory experience.
Yeah.
Not just engaging the mind, but the body and spirit too.
Absolutely. It was about immersing yourself in the sacred atmosphere of the place, trying to connect directly with the divine energy that filled these sites. And for many, it would have been this transformative experience, a chance to leave behind the everyday and step into this realm of heightened spiritual awareness.
Like a powerful antidote to the chaos and uncertainty of daily life.
Yeah.
But I wonder, were these pilgrimages open to everyone, or were there like social and cultural barriers that prevented some people from accessing these sacred sites?
That's a really important question, and sadly the answer is complicated. You see, while Shaktism, with its emphasis on the goddess as a source of power, it might seem very inclusive, the truth is social hierarchies, particularly the caste system, they played a big role in who could participate in religious practices and who could access these spaces.
So even in like the realm of the divine, these societal norms and inequalities, they still existed.
Sadly, that's often the case, yes. Some Shakti Peethas, they might have been more accessible to people of lower castes or people outside the traditional Brahmanical hierarchy, but others were likely much more strictly controlled.
It's a reminder that even when seeking the sacred social and economic realities, they couldn't be completely escaped. But let's shift gears a bit. We've been talking about these sites as if they're like relics of the past, frozen in time.
Right.
But I have a feeling Shakti Peethas are more than just historical landmarks.
You're absolutely right. These sites, they still hold so much meaning for millions of devotees today.
Oh, wow.
People still go on pilgrimages, they offer prayers, they seek the goddess's blessings at these sacred locations.
So they're living, breathing centers of faith.
Yes.
Constantly changing, adapting to the changing world.
Exactly. And that shows us the enduring power of Shaktism and the goddess as this source of strength, inspiration, hope. Even as the world changes, the need to connect to something bigger than ourselves, it remains this powerful driving force.
And these Shakti Peethas, they offer this tangible physical link to that intangible realm of faith and devotion.
They do. And maybe that's what makes them so compelling. They're not just dots on a map. They're gateways to a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the cosmos.
It makes you want to like grab your backpack and a guidebook and just set out on your own pilgrimage, doesn't it?
It's a tempting thought, and who knows what wonders and insights are out there waiting for those who seek them.
Speaking of seeking, I think we've done enough spiritual exploring for one session.
Yeah.
We've uncovered so much about Shakti Peethas, from their geography to their political significance and even their relevance in the world today.
We have. We've touched on so many topics, and I'm sure our listener has a lot to think about, but there's always more to discover, more layers to peel back.
Always. And that's what makes these deep dives so rewarding. It's not just about getting information. It's about igniting that spark of curiosity and wonder that can lead to more exploration.
Exactly. And that's what we hope we've done today, to inspire a continued journey of discovery, not just into the world of Shakti Peethas, but into the vast realm of human belief and the ways we search for meaning and connection in the universe.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. We've traveled across the Indian subcontinent. We've explored ancient temples and hidden natural sites. We've gone deep into the rich tapestry of Shaktism. But like any good adventure, it leaves us with more questions than answers, this thirst for further exploration. So until next time, keep exploring. We've covered a lot of ground, exploring these Shakti Peethas, from their spread across the map and their symbolism to like their political importance and even how they still matter today. But I think there's one more thing we should sort of peel back before we finish up. It's something you mentioned before, the idea that Shaktism, it didn't just appear all at once, but it kind of evolved over time, picking up older beliefs and practices, especially those connected to like sacred landscapes.
Yeah, that's a key point, and it shows how dynamic these religious traditions are. Shaktism, it didn't just force itself onto the landscape. It was more like a conversation with existing beliefs and sacred sites. It wove together different ideas and practices into this vibrant tapestry of faith.
So we're talking about this ongoing reverence for nature, this recognition that certain locations have this inherent power.
Right.
Long before, official temples and doctrines came along. It's like the goddess's energy was layered onto this already existing framework of sacred geography.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole concept of Shakti Peethas so fascinating. They include these grand temples, but also these subtle natural features. It reflects this worldview where the sacred is part of nature, where you can encounter the divine in the flow of a river, the peak of a mountain, or even the stillness of a forest.
It's a beautiful and humbling perspective.
Yeah.
It reminds us that the sacred, it's not just limited to buildings or written beliefs, but it can be experienced directly in the raw beauty and power of nature.
But this brings up an interesting question. If some Shakti Peethas are linked to these ancient, maybe even prehistoric sites, does that mean there are still undiscovered Shakti Peethas out there? Places where the goddess's presence is felt, but they've never been officially recognized or documented?
It's totally possible. Think about it. What if a certain rock formation or a hidden spring was revered as a Shakti Peetha for generations within a local community?
Right.
But that knowledge was never written down in any official texts or maps.
Right.
It's very likely that over time that place could be lost or forgotten, or even just dismissed as just a folktale or superstition by outsiders. So we could be walking right past hidden Shakti Peethas every day and not even know it.
Maybe.
It's like a spiritual treasure hunt waiting to happen.
It is. And it highlights how important local knowledge and oral traditions are if we want to truly understand the full scope of Shaktism, the most detailed maps, the most scholarly texts. They might only show us a small part of the sacred geography that's woven into the land and the memories of the people who live there.
It reminds us that studying religion and sacred sites, it's an ongoing process of discovery, this journey that requires, humility, curiosity, and a willingness to listen to the voices that are often marginalized or ignored.
Absolutely.
And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of Shakti Peetha.
We have. We've explored where they are, their symbolism, their political significance, and even how they're still relevant today. But as with any, profound journey, we end up with more questions than answers, a sense of awe and wonder and this thirst for further exploration.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so beautiful. This deep dive, it wasn't just about giving information. It was about sparking curiosity, a desire to learn more, to dig deeper into the mysteries at the heart of Shaktism. So to our listener, we encourage you to continue this journey of discovery, explore the maps, read the stories, but most importantly, be open to the possibility of encountering the sacred in the most unexpected places. Who knows, you might even stumble upon a hidden Shakti Peetha in your own backyard.
And if you do, let us know. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep looking for those hidden connections that tie us to the sacred and to each other.
That's a perfect way to end it. Thanks for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the world of Shakti Peethas. Until next time, keep exploring.